Colin Klein is making it really hard to not get excited about this staff.
You are Locked On Kansas State, your daily podcast on the Kansas State Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Kansas State, your daily Kansas State Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Christian Rauh, and thank you so much for making Locked On Kansas State your first listen every single day. Welcome back to my everydayers. We got an exciting episode for you today. We have some people that have entered the portal, but we're hearing some news they might be back because of this rumblings and maybe some of the new coaching staff getting you excited about it. We have some 2026 movement that is not in the best favor for Kansas State. We're going to get to that on this show. But first, we're going to talk about the new coaching addition that is going to change the way that Kansas State recruits and hopefully changes the way that we see the running back position because a running back coach was hired. We're going to get all to that in this episode right here on Locked On Kansas State. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, bringing you Wildcat coverage like nobody else, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. This is an exciting episode for Locked On Kansas State because Cory Patterson has been hired by Kansas State to be the next running back coach for the Wildcats. And if you look at his past, it's exciting. It is very exciting for what you can see. And obviously the first thing that comes to mind is what he can do with Joe Jackson in 2026. The excitement behind what the coming out party, if you will, in the second half of the season for Joe Jackson was exciting. And don't get me wrong, what Coach Anderson did in the past, he had a great resume for running backs at Kansas State. No doubt about that. But new blood coming in, new coaching staff. And to me, I think you had to have a home run hire here. I think you did. He's got proof in the pudding that he can take care of business. He can make NFL-ready running backs. And he recruits like crazy in the Midwest. Sounds like a check in the box in multiple spots for me if you want to be a great position coach at Kansas State University. And so far, that's exactly what it is. Let's look at the file. Let's dig into Cory Patterson. He spent last year as the Oklahoma State running back coach. It was his first season in Stillwater. Obviously, Oklahoma State didn't have a great season, but he was a Big 12 coach. He has that experience. He was under Gundy. He had to deal with the interim head coaching gig. He went through that. He dealt with the portal issues. He dealt with all that stuff, you name it. And he's coming out just fine, obviously getting himself over to Manhattan. Before that, he spent 2023 and 2024 at Purdue. He was actually the wide receivers coach at Purdue, which is funny because one of the wide receivers still on the roster, Jaron Tibbs, was under his duty as the wide receiver coach at Purdue when he was over there in West Lafayette. Before that, he was with Illinois, and this is where it really gets juicy. He was the running back coach. He was actually there as a running back coach, and he was there, I think, as the tight end coach at the beginning from 2018 to 2022. When he was the running back coach, he guided Chase Brown. That name might sound familiar. I know there's a couple of Bengals fans that followed this show that are also Kansas State fans. Chase Brown, one of the greatest running backs that Illinois has seen in quite some time. He was an All-American season in 2022, a Doak Walker Award finalist as well. Rushed for 1,600 yards, averaged just under 140 yards per game, and ranked third in the country in that statistic. Now he's a running back for the Cincinnati Bengals and doing a great job in the NFL. I mean, becoming an everyday type of running back, really making himself known. A lot of that comes into play because of Coach Patterson and what he did during that 2022 season, guiding him because he's no big player. He was no massive kind of guy. We're not talking like a Derrick Henry type of football player. He kind of has the same build as some of the smaller running backs we've seen in Kansas State in the past. And dare I say, put Joe Jackson in that conversation. Joe Jackson, I think, is a little bit bigger than Chase Brown. So it makes you wonder what they can do with him in 2026. I think that's really exciting for what you have under the shelf. He's from St. Louis, Missouri. This is where it gets even more fun, folks, because while he was in St. Louis, Missouri, before he started his college coaching career, he was a head coach and a coordinator and a coach from 2013 to 2017 at Trinity Catholic High School before he went off to the college ranks, becoming a position coach. He has great ties still in the St. Louis area, meaning that he's going to focus really hard on getting that recruiting done in the St. Louis area. That is key for winning back the area. Coach Klein continues to add these type of coaches that are focusing in the state of Kansas, Missouri, you name it, to bring those relationships, those local tie relationships, back to Kansas State. You have certain ties in the state of Texas. You're getting some in the Midwest. This one is the home run hire for St. Louis area. There's a ton of talent when it comes to football coming out of St. Louis. A ton. And he's already shown that he can do it at Oklahoma State, Illinois, Purdue. Those are massive P4 schools. This isn't just a, hey, we know you're a good recruiter, we're going to take a shot on you. No, this is, hey, we know you're a good recruiter, and we know that you can do it at the P4 level. Come on down. This is exciting stuff. This is a great hire, and he's not the only hire that's helping with the recruiting trail. You can see Jeremiah Johnson as well that's doing it. Colin Klein is definitely sending a message and saying, look, we are going to have a great recruiting presence, not just in the state of Kansas, but the surrounding area. And we're going to ensure that we're doing this right. One thing that I continue to keep harping on, they are going to focus on making sure they're doing this right, building the relationships. So when they finally have the new standard, the new structure of when this money stops being the wild, wild west, because again, I'm telling you, that is going to happen eventually. They're going to have to only come back on one thing and one thing only, and that's going to be relationships, and Kansas State's going to be miles ahead of everybody else. That's how Colin Klein's going to build this thing, and he's going to do it with this supporting staff of guys like Cory Patterson. Exciting stuff here if I'm Kansas State. Exciting stuff if I'm a K-State Wildcats fan, which of course you are. Every dayers welcome in, as you always are. For Joe Jackson, for the other players on this running back room that stuck around, there's 6. Antonio Martin, Devon Rice, Montario Elliston, and of course the 2026 class of H.D. Davis and Tanner West. I'm pumped if I'm them. I'm stoked, actually, because I'm going back and I'm looking at the resume, and obviously the first person I'm bringing up is Chase Brown. And I'm seeing that he has this type of a relationship, and I'm stoked. Now, I get it. You're going away from Coach Anderson, who has the same resume as well. You can talk about all the names. DJ Giddens, obviously the most recent. But this is the move in the right direction. This is exactly what you need if you're Coach Klein and you're ready to take that next step in the direction of making sure that Kansas State can build on all the momentum they've had over the past 7-8 years with Chris Kleiman. Obviously the stuff in the past with Bill Snyder, but bring it back to the roots. That new old school. So very excited with this hire. This might be my favorite positional group hire so far, and it's in the running back room. And I think that's exactly goes right back to the roots of Kansas State. Having good special teams. I love that hire as well, too, with Stanton Weber. Great special teams, solid running backs. Honestly, if you had to put yourself in a position, if somebody had to say, what does Kansas State football tell you? Those are probably the first 3 or 4 things that come up. They always have great running backs. Their special teams. It's always good. People like to call them special teams U. And home run hires in both of them. Absolutely love this pickup of Cory Patterson. Let's keep talking. Let's move on here. There has been a little bit of a downfall. The 2026 class did lose finally one player in the mix. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to discuss what that means as the transfer portal opens on Friday. The floodgates, could they open? I'm thinking not, but we're still going to talk about it just in case. We'll do that next right here on Locked On Kansas State. But first, this episode of Locked On Kansas State is brought to you by Game Time. Look, there's nothing like college football season. We all know that, with the college football playoffs coming up, with the fact that Kansas State, we're still talking about last year's season. That's how important the college football season is, and the memories you make with the tailgates, the packed stadiums, and being right there in the middle of it all. It just doesn't get any better than that. The energy, the bands, the moments you remember forever. But you know what is the most frustrating part? Actually getting tickets. And that part used to be frustrating with long queues, logins, prices jumping at checkout. It just never ended. But here to save the day is Game Time. That's what I use. It gives advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and experiences in just a few taps. I've opened up the Game Time app in the past, and I'm talking about college football games as low as $25. You can do all of that with the Game Time app. The zone deals, they stood out to me. You pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save even more. Talk about a bargain. That's what I love to see with Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. But again, that's LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Thanks for making Locked On Kansas State your first listen of the day. And thanks for making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 podcast network in the world. Really appreciate that. If you want even more, maybe ad-free experience or a all-access Discord, check out the Everydayers Club. You can get Locked On Kansas State ad-free, all for just $5 a month for $50 a year. Check out lockedonkansasState.supercast.com or check out the show notes below for more information. A lot of stuff to get into as we were just getting ready, just going to the ad break and coming back. I took a look at my my social media account, and we just talked about running backs. Well, there is some running back news. We got to get to that real fast. Antonio Martin is going to enter the transfer portal. So we just talked about some of the players and how excited you should be for some of these running backs. And obviously the 6 we mentioned, Antonio Martin, Joe Jackson, Devon Rice, Montario Elliston, H.D. Davis, and Tanner West. Well, now it's down to 5. Antonio Martin, who was seen as the older man of the group, he was going to become the only senior in the program, is now leaving the program. He didn't really get much of a shot last year. Obviously, with Dylan Edwards, Joe Jackson, Devon Rice kind of overpowered and overstepped him. He showed a little bit of flashes towards the end of the season. I was kind of looking forward to seeing what he could do in year 2 in the program. And, of course, year 1 under Colin Klein and with Cory Patterson. But good luck to him. I hope he finds a nice spot, and I hope he finds a good way to finish his collegiate career. This doesn't change anything how I feel about Cory Patterson, though. If anything, I think that just opens up one extra spot into the mix. Kansas State entered the season last year with 6 running backs. With Antonio Martin, you were at 6. Now you're at 5. So that shows that you have at least one open spot if you're going to just go based on last season. Because last season you had Dylan Edwards. Of course, he redshirted and left the program. And then J.B. Price left the program in the portal as well. Now we have Antonio Martin. And then you add 2 from the 2026 class. So you're still at a -1 deficit in the running back room compared to where you started in 2025. So we get right off the bat, Cory Patterson gets to use his St. Louis recruiting tactics, maybe find something in the portal, and maybe bring somebody home and that can help improve this running back room and help maybe get Joe Jackson a nice running mate to get this team right back to where it belongs as a Big 12 contender in 2026. On the flip side, there is a player that did decide to leave in the 2026 class. And this is one that is really, it's a bummer. I'll be honest with you. It's a bummer because it's just somebody that we were hoping to get. And Andrew Burbidge is going to be leaving and not committing to Kansas State after all. He was one of the players that decided to flip from Washington State to Kansas State on National Signing Day. He's from Iowa Western Community College. He was it was an interesting decision that he decided to move on and no longer be with Kansas State. And it's unfortunate, but I'm going to be honest with you. It's not the end of the world. I wasn't expecting him to be part of the 2026 recruiting class to begin with. This was a flip that was just like one of those more like exciting flips. It was the 7th flip of the 2026 class. Kansas State had a lot of good flips in the direction. So the fact that we only lost one of them, there was a couple that flipped early before the recruiting season actually started, before National Signing Day actually started. If you remember, there was a few that left the 2026 class, went to Arizona. There was a couple in those mix. But the fact that with all the coaching changes, he's the first player to leave post Colin Klein in the 2026 class, that alone should get you excited. And that's why I'm saying it's not a big deal. Not because I don't think he's going to be an excellent talent. I think we're going to wind up, you're going to want to remember his name because he's probably going to be a really good talent. And there's going to be the what ifs if he would have stayed at Kansas State. That wouldn't shock me in the slightest. I'm more saying that in a big picture scenario, Look at this 2026 class. They're all staying put. They believe in the message. And that is exciting. That is the exciting part here of what you get from Colin Klein so far. Now, he wasn't the biggest defensive tackle. He's 295, but he played a lot bigger than his size. He had an impressive strength. And the fact that the defense is getting eaten up in the transfer portal, especially at the defensive tackle, defensive end position, and of course, losing, Samalu and Damian Ilalo, like losing those players for eligibility reasons, Malcolm Alcorn, Crowder leaving at defensive tackle position, there was a possibility that a true freshman like him could potentially get some sort of playing time or at least maybe find themselves in rotation, especially coming from the community college ranks where you're not truly that, green player out of high school. So this one does sting a little bit. Don't get me wrong, but I'm choosing to take the big picture approach since this is the one and only 2026 recruiting class player that has flipped post Colin Klein. And I think that's exciting. I really see the message that this new coaching staff is trying to deliver to the schools. We're seeing other teams that are getting crushed in the transfer portal, and Kansas State is really no different. It's just not as bad if you look at some of the others. Look at Iowa State. People are making jokes at their roster sizes in the teens, and that's turning into not being a joke. That's turning into being an actual problem. On the flip side, it's not just the Big 12 either. You're seeing it in the SEC. Auburn's getting completely hammered. It's wild. The coaching staff at Kansas State is bringing in a brand new mentality that still has the old roots, but they're building in this new culture. It's interesting. It's got the same feel of the old school mentality, right? This new old school kind of feel. That's why it's perfectly defined. Because it doesn't feel much different, but there's enough buzz to know that things are going to be different in Manhattan in a very good way. And I think that's why these younger recruiting classes, we're seeing it from the 2025 classes too. Not many players have left that class. They're sticking around. And then we saw from the 2026 class so far, they understand the mission. They see the path forward. And that should be exciting if you're a K-State fan moving forward the rest of the way. There's no doubt about that in my mind, for sure. There's a little bit more I want to get to on this show. Of course, some players could be returning in the portal. We've heard some names that have left and say they're going to intend to enter the transfer portal. Nothing is official until the paperwork starts on Friday. But now with some of these new names being named as coaching staffs, some players are saying, let's run it back. Let's talk about who those players are and who they could be next on Locked On Kansas State. But first, this episode of Locked On Kansas State is brought to you by FanDuel. And Fridays already feel different during the basketball season, and FanDuel's making them even better. Every Friday night before the game tips off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. What a way to bring in the new year with this NBA Happy Hour on Friday. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Friday from 6 to 7:30 Eastern, that's 5 from 6:30 Central, have become appointment viewing for NBA Happy Hour. You open the FanDuel app during Happy Hour, always bring something new with boost, bonuses, or surprises. The timing's perfect right before the games and right before the weekend starts. It adds extra energy to a Friday night basketball without overthinking it. So before tip-off this Friday, check out the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA's Happy Hour. Every Friday from 6 to 7:30 Eastern or 5 to 6:30 Central, a little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to Locked On Kansas State, your daily Kansas State Wildcats podcast. Look, I'm excited. I am pumped. If you might hear there's a little bit of energy here, I'm ringing in the new year. We have a great way to finish off 2025 here at Locked On Kansas State, the official first full year of this channel. Really appreciate everybody. 1,500 subscribers strong and counting, and it's only going to get better from here. Love the everydayers. Love everybody who tunes in. Really appreciate you giving us just your 25 to 30 minutes of time every single day right here on Locked On Kansas State. We got a lot of great things coming to you in 2026. And tomorrow, we're going to end it by doing the best thing that I know how, is look back at the wild year of 2025. We're going to dive in to what we got to see, kind of kiss 2025 goodbye with what was maybe the wildest year that Kansas State has seen, at least in the last decade, with all the things happening. And we're going to kind of just take a nice, relaxing way back there. We're going to do that on tomorrow's episode, so be sure to tune in. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell so you don't miss when we drop those episodes. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on audio, I thank you. Let's dive more into this one right here. With all these coaching changes happening, of course, this is going to bring in some transfer portal changes. Of course, Jace Brown leaving in the portal, Austin Romaine saying he's going to leave in the portal, Malcolm Alcorn Crowder are saying he's going to leave in the portal. There's a lot of names. Daniel Cobbs just announced that he's going to enter the portal, and we mentioned right in the middle of this show, Antonio Martin has intended to enter the transfer portal that opens up on Friday. But there are a few names that have popped up on social media saying they do intend to enter the portal, and then a certain coach gets hired, and then they say, you know what, actually, I'm good. I'm sticking right here. I'm staying with Kansas State. I believe in this message. And two of them are on the defensive side. One is confirmed, and one is, I guess you could say, a little cryptic, and it's leaning towards hopefully returning to Kansas State, but we can't 100% confirm it. We're going to talk about it. First and foremost, Donovan McIntosh is coming back to Kansas State. There was talks that he was going to enter the transfer portal. His agent sent it out to some of the other college football insiders. They put it out on On3, put it out on ESPN, you name it. And then as soon as the defensive coordinator was hired, Donovan McIntosh said, you know what, let's run it back. I'm pumped. Let's stay here. Kansas State is the place to be, and I'm sticking around. So when you look at the cornerbacks for 2026, so far, Zayshawn Rich and Donovan McIntosh will be back. And of course, you got Jaden Rauh in the mix as well. You got some of the other true freshmen from this past season, but Martell Jackson, JoJo Scott, Sirius Stinyard, they're all back as well. That's exciting stuff for the cornerback room. Huge, actually. I'd say that's huge in the mix that they're back. And then on the other side here, we're not sure if this is 100%, of course, but this one would be Mecca in my mind. I mean, with the exception of, Jace Brown, obviously a lot of people know that that's a huge hit. You look at the wide receiver room, Austin Romaine, what he's done over the past couple of years. I would feel the same way if they did the exact same thing that happened this past week than I do with this player as well. Qua Moss, the safety, obviously came over, transferred this past season to Kansas State, entered the transfer portal. A lot of people thought the reason he entered the transfer portal is because he's going to get a bag, because the talent, what he showed at Kansas State this past season. Well, he put out a video talking about how he wants to, kind of like he's ready. And it was all Kansas State highlights, of course, because that's what he played for last year. And he didn't say that he was returning by any means. But when you looked at the people, this is like really digging into the roots here of the social medias. When you looked at who liked or retweeted the tweet of the video, Taylor Bratt, head of recruiting, some of the coaches, some of the new coaches at Kansas State, it really makes you wonder, okay, is he coming back? Is he truly coming back? I hope he is. If he comes back, the secondary looks completely different. With Donovan McIntosh obviously coming back, the safety room already getting beat up a little bit with losing Gunnar Maldonado and VJ Payne from eligibility reasons. Daniel Cobb, Kobe McAllister leaving as well. If Qua Moss comes back, and so far Logan Bartley hasn't decided to enter transfer portal even, although we saw the cryptic tweets of him with photos with him and Joe Klannerman. A lot of people thought maybe he was out the door, myself included, thought, oh, hang on, we might lose him. So far, that hasn't happened. Wesley Fair, still there. Mikey Bergeron, Jack Fabris, still there. I think those players are bound to make a next step forward. I thought it was going to be Jack Fabris' year or Mikey Bergeron's year. See if they can make that next step forward in 2026. Some of the other true freshmen, Jace Adler, RJ Collins, Dominic Mitchell. The safety room looks exciting. And then you add Qua Moss back into the mix. I think if you bring Qua Moss back into the mix, you don't have to bring another safety in the room. You can focus on other positions. I think Qua Moss takes care of any problems you have for that safety room if you look at the rest of them, even with losing Gunnar Maldonado or VJ Payne. With the other players on the bottom. And of course, the 2026 class didn't even bring up some of those players that are going to be turned into safeties. I think you do that. So excited. Hopefully that happens. Hopefully we get Qua Moss in the mix. Donovan McIntosh confirmed. Qua Moss, question mark. Now, Jace Brown's also put out some videos saying like coming soon. But of course, not sure if that just means, the portal opens in a couple days. And I'm going to tell you where I commit to. Although people enter the transfer portal or say they intend to, it does not mean they're out of Kansas State. They can come back. We saw it happen with basketball at CJ Jones. It's possible, folks. It's absolutely possible. And if this new coaching staff wants to get somebody or they feel it's worth it, they want to build that relationship, they're doing it the right way. And they're going to bring people back for the right reasons. So if there's an opportunity, if it makes sense for both parties, I bet it happens. Whether it's Qua Moss, Jace Brown, maybe even Austin Romaine. We'll find out over the next couple days as the transfer portal opens on Friday. About to be a crazy weekend to start off the new year. Thanks for making Locked On Kansas State your first listen of the day. For your second listen of the day, why don't you go check out Locked On Cyclones? Check him out because, man, he's hurting right now. Give him a listen because I don't think he has enough players to talk about. There are so many issues going on over at Iowa State. Poor little brother of the Farmageddon series, right? I don't care if they won the game this year. They don't have any players to talk about it to make any kind of make a big deal out of it, right? Because they got no players left. Farmageddon's going to look completely different. So go ahead, check out Nick Maravets and Locked On Cyclones for your second listen of the day. I'd appreciate that. Please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you back here next time right here on Locked On Kansas State.